Studio on channel here over at Subscribestar. So Zaslav tries to make a buck, and some liberal, useful idiot on social media with 5,000 followers, who is probably you have a tweet like you got a small account, you have a tweet that blows up, and then you start looking at it, and you're public figure, and you start looking at that tweet, you're like, kind of wish I hadn't have tweeted that, which is what attorney Ben Crump is doing now with his some of his deleted tweets. Speaking of him and the Young Turks and a couple other news sites are going to be the Young Turks video about that New York nurse. It's like I think that video is going to be disappeared pretty soon because they made a defamatory statement of fact, and I think they're going to be getting a settlement offer pretty soon. Anyway, so Zaslav tries to make a buck, and the libs are outraged. Oh, so this guy, he's this Netflix writer, useful idiot, who I hate to say you can look at somebody and say you look like a useful idiot, but then you read his tweet history, and he writes like a useful idiot, which is a problem because he's a writer for Netflix. Writers are usually not idiots. You might disagree with them, but they usually know how to put together sentences. And this guy sounds dumb, but he's a Netflix writer. That's where we are now. But he's he's probably looking at this tweet with Zaslav, and he probably thinks like starting off stunning and brave, and then he's looking at it and just getting all this traction and realize like, maybe I shouldn't, I wish I could. Shit. That feeling you get. Anyway, so HBO decides to slightly dial down the woke and tries to do shows that find an audience, a paying audience who's willing to pay for their, subscription service, and not transgender all anal teen gangbang for children, which is what most of the mainstream stuff is doing. You can only boil the Weimar frog so fast, and Zaslav is coming along to cool things off for a season to make some cash. Eventually, Disney will probably do the same, but they're sitting on a lot of cash. People see Disney burning money and making movies. Like you look at that Panda movie, it lost like over $160 million, something ridiculous, and a bunch of other movies lost anywhere from like $50 to $100 million. You go, that money adds up, right? And then you look at how much cash Disney comes in from their old stuff, and you realize, yeah, that's how they can subsidize for a long time. But Amazon and Warner Brothers in kind of a different perspective. So what he's doing is canceling stuff that nobody is on board with. What an idiot. Nobody's on board with anyway, but the tiny fan base of rainbow flags that's on social media. So they think they're bigger than they are. And then you look at them on Twitter and go like, Twitter's not real life. By that I mean that the likes and the retweets and all the kind of things on Twitter are free, and people think they have this way overblown expectation of how many people are on board with them, and it's like the Twitter doesn't do anything. The only thing that matters is how many people are willing to pay $15 a month for HBO or whatever it costs. So what Zaslav is doing is coming along. It's still going to be all this stuff that anything in the mainstream is going to be woke propaganda. It's just going to be a little bit relaxed, and it doesn't matter if it's the left or the right. Doesn't Ben Shapiro have some kind of movie show or some kind of thing, network or something, where he makes some cowboy movie with Gina Carano and the three bad guys are all like blonde haired, blue eyed dudes or something bizarre like that. And you look at like, it's like, so this is a couple hundred years ago, there was other, whatever. You get the idea. So this useful idiot, Corey Deshawn, views media as, where's his image? Views, yeah, views media as nothing more than propaganda, which it is. It's mostly propaganda, but Zaslav is coming along and wants to make a little bit of a profit, and just that little bit was enough to trigger this useful idiot. But that doesn't mean the stuff is going to be anti-woke or even just the fun silliness of the 1980s. God, I miss the 80s. The John Cusack movies, Better Off Dead, and the rest of that stuff that came out back then. You're never, ever going to get movies like that again. Even, I mean, all his movies were just fantastic. But those types of movies where there's endless ski races down mountains and girls in bikinis and like just the most ridiculous premise to have as many girls in bikinis either on the ski slopes or like in surfing competitions as possible. That was a lot of the 80s. And you look at today's movies, like, were those movies dumb? Of course they were dumb. But you look at the modern stuff now, it's like, so some like transgender beaver got her mammary glands removed, and that's Cartoon Network's Blue's Clues, something. It's like, that's all actually happened. I just, I told me in the 80s I'd live to see actual Weimar, I probably would not have believed you. Anyway, so no, this stuff is not going to be anti-woke. It's not going to. It's going to be. There's going to be pox, walks, purse puppies, and all that kind of stupid Mary Sue stuff. It's just going to be a little bit less. Amazon is the Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings, which is the absolute bomb. And there's news coming out with Rings of Power that they're trying to get your attention, but the next season's like 2 years away or something. If say a million people tuned in to watch the first Rings of Power, the next season you probably gonna get like 300,000. People are not going to be on board with it. The thing is, but Amazon has got shipping money and artificial intelligence money or whatever their other businesses are. They can subsidize woke movies, their whole entertainment division. They can subsidize that forever, and that money's not even just a blip on the radar for the totality of the market cap of Amazon. That's how much. That's how big Amazon is. Disney has decades of old products to subsidize their future woke bumps. But I guess HBO is in a little bit of a different financial situation. They're still going to make woke stuff, but it's going to be selectively woke with fewer shows that only blue-haired Twitter idiots watch. And they think David Zaslav is some like, I don't know. They try to strawman him as he's some far-right extreme businessman who's march around a Hugo Boss or some kind of nonsense. It's like he's just gonna dial down. Like there's probably 50 animations and streaming shows that are just nobody's watching, and he's looking at those and go, oh, we're just gonna like, what's the point of making them? They hurt the brand. When you have stuff that's on the network that hurts the brand, like the reason they canceled Batwoman because it was so bad. It wasn't just a question of losing money, but people were starting to associate. That's DC, HBO, Warner Brothers, right? People will start to associate a negativity with your brand, and that's like with Disney. What Disney Marvel is going through, what Disney Star Wars is going through, and Disney Raiders of the Lost, or I don't know what you call the Indiana Jones series with number 5 or 6 that's coming out. So Disney, as this umbrella corporation, is starting to get this image of a losing brand again. If you told me 40 years ago, like, that like Disney was gonna turn this around and go from making whatever movies they were making 40 years ago, 1983, these fun little kids movies of Robin Hood with Fox's animation type of stuff, and they're going to make stuff that's just unrecognizable. You couldn't, like, imagine going back to 1983 and trying to tell people what modern day Disney would be like. People would not have comprehended it. And the funny thing was, I was talking to somebody in the early 90s about Disney, and they were telling me, they work for Disney, and they were telling me about all the people who working at Disney, not just like the park entertainment stuff. I think they meant all the other people, and they're saying like there's a lot of BLT people, and that was what, 30 years ago from now. And as I kind of think about it, I thought, yeah, you kind of see that kind of thing play out with what's how they influence the movies. Anyway, so the funny thing is, this Deshaun guy calls Zaslav an unseasoned turkey breast because of the color of his skin, and that goes completely unnoticed on Twitter. Assuming those tweets are still up. If I was him, I would have just deleted that whole tweet thread because you're in the same industry. But there's no cancellation for this Deshaun guy, not for calling him an unseasoned turkey breast and then some kind of, I don't know, white something. A racist insult from a pox is of absolutely no consequence. It doesn't even register for anyone. It's like, the thing is, like, the people who know, that soft bigotry or lower expectations. And like, when you see this stuff, these people say things and they don't understand what a self-own it is. Just the biggest L, they're carrying it around because they don't get any pushback because they're not expected to be any better. And that's just the brutal, brutal reality, which might have been a bit too much for YouTube, but we'll see. But the thing is, being a public troublemaker is not a good idea. So these kind of comments might come back to bite him. With anything, you look around and you ask, like, where are people doing the stuff you're doing? There's, what's the reason they're not? You can do that on YouTube if you're thinking about making a video on a topic, and you go, I don't think I've seen that video on YouTube. Then you search it, and nothing comes up. Or if a very carefully curated results come back, that means it's a hot topic for YouTube. Something about, I'm not even going to mention it, but hot topics for YouTube's. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Rest in peace, Isaac Cappy. all that stuff's on Odyssey and BitChute, but it tells you the lay of the land, and it's kind of the same thing with this useful idiot, because he's, you ask like, well, is criticizing somebody who's in that industry, the same industry as you, is that a good idea? Because I gotta assume, if it's not done that often, criticizing people who are in the same industry, who's, in charge of HBO, and you're just a writer at Netflix, it's probably not a good idea. But the guy's a Netflix writer, which means he is legitimately low IQ. And if you read through his tweets, you'll get what I mean. You go like, you're a writer for like comic books or something? No, I'm a Netflix writer. How are you a writer if you're not interesting or entertaining at all? That's a weird thing about a lot of these public figures. Anyway, he also what did he say, something in one of his tweets? Unseasoned chicken. Oh, they wanted a younger, more diverse HBO. Well, yeah, they looked at that, and that audience didn't materialize. This means younger and more diverse just means woke propaganda. So it didn't materialize, so they decided to adjust to market forces. Oh, no, no, we need them to subsidize this woke propaganda. Why don't you start your own network or put out the content? I mean, obviously you're not going to do that, but you could do something if you want to. Like you can in some small way you can put out your own narrative if you want. But like eventually a $1 billion company has to make money. But they call him unseasoned turkey breast, and he gets 30,000 likes for that, and nobody in the comments ever comes along and says, "Oh, that's racial disparagement." It's kind of weird. One old white man, yeah, I don't say anything in the comments. Personal worldview, it's like a business decision. And then he says his last thing is so effing bizarre. Oh, the guy's like mildly a Trump supporter, but then he has one other comment that's, wait, hold on, let me pause. Let me find this comment. Okay, again, don't say anything in the comments because it's so ridiculous, right? He says Corey Deshawn, Mister, I like to skate out over the thinnest of thin ice because apparently I'm wearing a blindfold. He says the industry could be so much more. And the only reason it isn't is because less than a dozen dudes of the same demographic consciously choose for it not to be. What a effing waste! I'm going back to sleep. See ya all on the picket line. I guess because of writer's strike or something. I mean, if you know, you know. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next episode.